It started with a body behind the diner. I was at home that morning, just like most mornings these days, when I heard about it from Tasha, the waitress who sometimes swings by to check on me. She showed up on my porch, pale as milk, said there was blood behind the alley, and that Rick, the cook, had found what was left of a man. Not a name, not even a face, just a man. I asked what she meant, and she just shook her head, said the guy didn't have any eyes left, and his arms were twisted like wet rags. Now, I'm not the panicky type. I've lived in Grindle my whole damn life. Small town tucked into the Rockies. Quiet, cold, and mostly forgettable. We've had our fair share of weird over the years. Occasional animal attack, some local drunk doing something stupid. But nothing like this. Not someone getting laid out in a back alley with their face missing. People started whispering. Something about animals. Maybe a bear. Maybe a cougar. But that didn't sit right. Not with how the guy's body was left, all laid out like someone had taken their time, and not with how silent it had been. No screams, no struggle, just gone. The next day it got worse. A pickup truck was found still running in the middle of the road that leads out of town. Driver's door wide open, headlights on, windshield cracked like something had clawed it. But no driver. No blood this time, not really. Just an emptiness. Like the truck had been waiting there longer than it should have, humming into the fog like it was confused too. Then on Wednesday, the school shut down. Kids were already there, dropped off by the buses, but the teachers didn't show. Two of them, Mr. Anders and Ms. Felton, just disappeared. The third, Miss Kiley, locked herself in her house and didn't answer the door even when the sheriff came knocking. Later that afternoon, the sheriff kicked it in and found every mirror in the house smashed to pieces. Miss Kiley was gone. People were starting to get real quiet. You know how small towns are. Gossip's usually louder than church bells. But by Thursday, nobody wanted to say anything out loud anymore. It was like just talking about what was happening might make it worse. That evening, I decided to check on my neighbor. Her name's Maggie Harper. Sweet old woman. Makes banana bread twice a week and always gives me half because she says I look too skinny for a grown man. She's got arthritis in her legs and barely gets around without her walker, but she still leaves her porch light on every night like clockwork. I hadn't seen it on the last 2 nights, so I bundled up, grabbed my flashlight, and walked the short trail up the hill to her place. It was cold. Colder than usual for late October. The kind of cold that seeps through your jacket and into your bones before you even realize you're shivering. The sky was gray and weirdly thick, like it wasn't clouds, but something heavier. The wind had this slow, dragging sound, like it was pulling something along with it. I tried to brush it off, kept walking. Halfway up, I noticed it. The silence. It wasn't just quiet. It was wrong. There were no birds, no branches creaking, no dogs barking in the distance. Just me and the crunch of gravel under my boots. Even that sounded like it was being swallowed by the dark. That's when I heard it. A faint tapping. Not ahead of me. Not from Maggie's trailer. It was off to the side, near the cluster of old mailboxes we never use anymore. I turned the flashlight toward it. Nothing. Just an empty row of mailboxes with rusted hinges and peeling paint. But the sound kept going, just faint enough to make me question if it was even real. I turned back toward Maggie's place and froze. There was someone on her porch. I didn't see them walk up. They were just there, tall, lean. Shoulders sloped weirdly forward like their bones were bending the wrong way. I couldn't see the face, not from this distance, but they were standing completely still, facing Maggie's front door. I ducked behind a tree, heart pounding. My flashlight shook in my hand, and I clicked it off without thinking. The porch light flickered on for half a second, just long enough for me to catch a glimpse. The figure turned its head toward me, just slightly, not fast, like it already knew I was there and was just confirming it. Then the light went out again. I backed up, careful, real careful. But as soon as I turned to move, I stepped on a patch of ice and almost slipped. Caught myself, barely, but it was loud enough to echo. The tapping stopped. I didn't look back. I just ran. Got all the way back to my cabin without seeing another soul. Slammed the door, locked it, turned every light on in the house. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. I couldn't catch my breath. I didn't know if I'd imagined it or if someone really had been there. That's when my phone went off. Not a call, not a text, an alert. That sharp, shrieking tone that makes your stomach twist. My hands fumbled with it, nearly dropped the damn thing. When I looked at the screen, I felt the bottom fall out of me. Emergency alert. Do not open your door after sundown. Do not respond to anyone outside, even if they appear familiar. Stay indoors. Stay silent. Wait for further instruction. The alert didn't go away. It just stayed on the screen, pulsing slightly. I stared at it, trying to understand what the hell I was reading. This wasn't some test. This wasn't a weather warning. This was something else. Something real. Then came the knock. 3 soft taps at the front door. I didn't move. The knock came again. Then a voice. Eli, it's Maggie. I brought you some bread. She sounded fine, normal, sweet even. But I'd just come from Maggie's place, and I'd seen what was on that porch. I stood frozen in my hallway, still clutching the phone, the glow from that red alert lighting up the room like a flare. I kept reading it over and over, hoping I was misunderstanding something. Do not open your door after sundown. Do not respond to anyone outside, even if they appear familiar. Even if. That part messed with my head the most. Eli? The voice called again from outside. It's me, hun. I brought your favorite. I couldn't speak. My mouth was dry. My throat felt tight, like something was coiled around it. I took one step back, then another, keeping my eyes locked on the door like it might explode inward. A long pause, then the sound of her shuffling away. The porch creaked under her weight. I heard what sounded like her walking down the steps, but I didn't go check. I didn't even peek through the peephole. I just stood there, heart hammering, until the house went dead silent again. 10 minutes passed, maybe 15. I don't know. Time was bending. I was sweating even though the house was freezing. I kept thinking about the voice, about how it sounded exactly like Maggie, down to the little wheeze she gets when it's cold out. I pulled the couch in front of the door, then the coffee table. I pushed the bookshelf over and jammed a kitchen chair underneath the doorknob. It wouldn't stop anything determined, but it made me feel a little better. I didn't sleep. Around 3 a.m., I finally slumped onto the floor near the wood stove. My eyes burned from staying open so long, my limbs were sore, but I didn't dare go to bed. The phone was still in my hand, screen dark now, but I didn't want to turn it off, like maybe the alert would come back and explain everything if I just waited. At some point, I dozed off. When I woke, it was morning. Dim gray light crept through the cracks in the curtains. I stood slowly, every joint aching. The couch and furniture were still piled against the door, unmoved. I unblocked the entrance just enough to open it an inch and peek out. Nothing. No footprints. No basket of bread. No Maggie. I stepped outside carefully, my boots crunching softly against a thin layer of frost. The cold hit hard, dry and sharp, like the kind that cuts into your lungs. I looked toward Maggie's trailer, but it was too far up the hill to see clearly through the trees. I stood there for a moment, wondering if I'd imagined it all. The alert, the voice, the knock. Maybe I'd finally lost it, all the drinking, all the nights alone. But then I noticed something on the porch, A shoe, small, brown leather, lined with wool, the kind Maggie always wore in the winter. It was sitting sideways, like it had been dropped mid-step, and it had blood on the toe. I picked it up with a trembling hand. The blood was dry, darkened almost to black, but definitely real. Not animal, not paint. My stomach turned over, and I sat down hard on the steps. A wave of nausea hit me so hard I thought I might throw up right there. I didn't know what to do. Call the cops? There were only two in town, Sheriff Kinley and his deputy, Josh. But their number had gone straight to voicemail the last few days. No surprise. Phones had been spotty ever since that weird communications facility opened up in the West Ridge. I decided I had to check on her. I didn't want to. I wanted to pretend the shoe wasn't hers, that none of it was real. But I couldn't. Not when there was even a chance she was hurt. I grabbed my flashlight, my thick jacket, and the old hunting knife from my dad's toolbox. The blade was dull and the handle was cracked, but it was better than nothing. I started up the trail to Maggie's, every step making my heart thump harder in my chest. The closer I got, the worse it felt. There were no birds, no breeze, just that same wrong silence from the night before. I felt like I was walking into a trap and every part of me wanted to turn around, but I kept going. Her trailer came into view through the trees. The door was open, not wide open, just slightly, like someone had nudged it and left it hanging. I stopped a few yards away, squinting at the porch. Something was off. I couldn't place it at first. Then I saw it, the wood. The planks of her porch were soaked, not with water or snow, but with something darker. It had dried in weird patterns, soaked into the grain. A smell hit me next, coppery, sharp. It made my nose sting. "Maggie?" I called out softly. No answer. I stepped onto the porch. The boards creaked. The air felt heavier, like it was pressing down on me. I pushed the door open gently, the hinges groaning. Inside was chaos. Furniture overturned, the kitchen table on its side. A lamp smashed on the floor. Her walker lay near the couch, one wheel bent, and blood, smears of it, dragged across the floor like something had been pulled. No sign of Maggie. I moved slowly, listening for anything. Breathing, a whimper, a creak, but there was nothing. That's when I heard my own phone buzz again. I nearly jumped out of my skin. I pulled it out of my jacket pocket and saw it, a second emergency alert. This one was shorter. Do not attempt to help the taken. They are not who they were. My hands shook. I looked down at the blood trail again. It led toward the back room. Something in me said, "Turn around." But I took a step forward, then another. I reached the doorway to her bedroom and peeked inside. The bed was torn apart, mattress half off the frame, sheets shredded. On the wall, just above the headboard, was a smear of red. Dragged fingers, like someone had been trying to hold on while being pulled away. I started backing up. That's when I heard the front door creak shut. I spun around fast, but there was no one, just the sound of the doorknob turning, then a voice from outside. "Eli, you up here? It's Josh, Deputy Josh. Sheriff's out by the main road. We're doing checks." It sounded like him, but something was wrong. He sounded too calm, too slow, like he was reading a line from a script. I didn't answer. I backed into the corner of the room and held my breath. Then he spoke again, only it wasn't the same voice anymore. "Eli," it said with a smile in the tone. "Let's not pretend. I know you're in there. Let me in. I brought help." Something scratched against the siding. Then again, I clutched the knife tighter, stomach twisting. Outside, the voice kept talking. Not angry, not rushed, just patient. "I saw you go in, Eli. Come on, open up. No reason to make this harder." The voice outside kept going, calm as hell, like this was just a routine visit. But there was something off in the rhythm, like whoever or whatever was speaking didn't quite understand how normal conversation worked. It hit the wrong notes, smiled in the wrong places. I stayed put in the bedroom corner, breathing slow and shallow, trying to make no noise. The knife felt too small in my hand. My fingers ached from gripping it so tight, but I didn't dare loosen up. Outside, I heard footsteps on the porch again. Too heavy for Josh, too deliberate. Each one sounded like it was being planted with intention, like whoever it was wanted me to hear them walking. Then silence. Then 3 knocks. Soft, patient. Not loud enough to seem aggressive, but not light enough to be polite. "Eli," the voice said again, "you're making this harder than it needs to be. We can keep you safe." I almost laughed, but it would have come out more like a scream. Safe? From what? From them? I knew what I heard last night. I knew what I saw. And if that thing on Maggie's porch had figured out how to talk like Josh, there was no telling how many more voices it could mimic. That thought sat like a stone in my gut. What if it wasn't just using her voice? What if it had her? What if it learned from her somehow? Then something else hit me. What if it didn't leave after last night? What if it never left at all? I stayed in that corner for what felt like an hour, maybe more. Eventually, the footsteps faded away. I waited longer, just in case, until I couldn't hear a thing, not even the wind. I finally stood, legs cramping, back sore from crouching so long. I crept to the front window and carefully peeled back the curtain. Nobody. The trail down to my cabin was empty, just frost-covered leaves and thin mist curling along the ground. I had 2 choices: stay here in Maggie's wrecked trailer and wait, or make a run back to my place while it was quiet. Neither felt good, but I couldn't stay here. Everything in my body was screaming to go. So I grabbed a throw blanket off Maggie's couch, wrapped it around my shoulders like a shield, and stepped outside. Every sound felt like a threat. The crunch of gravel underfoot, the creak of the porch steps, the rustle of leaves far off in the trees. I didn't run. I moved slow, careful, like if I went too fast, I'd attract something worse. When I made it back to the cabin, I bolted the door and shoved all the furniture back in place. That's when I noticed the voicemail. My phone lit up with a new notification. 1 missed call from Sheriff Kinley. Left at 5:47 a.m. I hesitated, thumb hovering over the screen. Then I pressed play. There was a long pause. Nothing at first but low static, like a poor signal. Then his voice came through, garbled and shaky. "Eli, listen to me. Don't trust." Not human. Not anymore. If they... More static, and then a sound I can only describe as a high-pitched hum, like an old TV warming up, but way too loud. My ears rang. I pulled the phone away, but the message kept going. "The hill. Don't let it in, Eli. Whatever you do, don't look it in the eyes. You hear me? Don't..." The line cut off. That was it. No callback, no follow-up, just a warning that didn't feel like it came in time. I stared at the phone, heart beating hard against my ribs. What did he mean? Don't look it in the eyes? I hadn't even seen its face. A second later, the power went out. The lights cut. The fridge clicked off. The heater died. My phone dimmed and started blinking its battery warning at me like it was panicking too. I stood still for a second, listening. The silence was back, thick and full. It wasn't peaceful. It was the kind of silence that meant something was nearby, watching, holding its breath. Then came the scratching. Not on the walls, not the windows. It came from inside, from under the floor, slow, deliberate, like fingers dragging through dirt and wood. I grabbed the flashlight and clicked it on. The beam was weak, flickering, but it was enough to see the floorboards. They were vibrating, A low creak rolled across the room. Something shifted beneath me. I backed up, step by step, toward the bedroom. Then came a whisper. From under the floor, it said my name.
Eli.
Just like Maggie's voice. Only this time, wrong, slurred, drawn out, like someone trying to speak through a mouth that wasn't meant to form words. I backed up faster. Into the bedroom, slammed the door, locked it. Then something slammed into the wall behind me. Not gently, not like it was testing the strength. It wanted in. I pressed my back to the door. My heart was beating so fast it didn't even feel like individual beats anymore, just one long, painful throb. Then the voice came again, louder, echoing through the vents, the walls, the floorboards.
You're alone now, Eli. Let me in.
It wasn't asking. It knew I was listening, knew I was trapped, and it sounded so confident, like it wasn't a matter of if I would give in, just when. I shoved the dresser against the door, piled pillows under the window. I didn't know what I was doing. It wouldn't stop anything, but it gave me something to focus on. Then the radio crackled. The old battery-powered emergency radio I kept in my closet. It sparked to life all on its own, fuzzing with static, then clicking into a voice. Not the creatures this time. It was a woman, clear, calm, professional. If you are receiving this broadcast, you are within the perimeter of the Grindle Containment Zone. Do not attempt to leave town. Do not respond to outside contact. Lock all doors and remain inside. Visual mimicry has been confirmed. Repeat, visual mimicry confirmed. I stared at the radio like it was some cursed object. Then it continued. Under no circumstances should you look directly at their faces. Prolonged exposure to mimic signals may result in psychological breakdown, disorientation, memory loss, or compliance. Compliance. The word hit like a slap. That's what it was doing. That's what it had been trying to do. Wear me down. Use familiar voices. Trap me inside my own head until I started second-guessing what was real and what wasn't. And it almost worked. The lights flickered on for a brief second, then off again, just long enough for me to see the shadow inside the room with me. It was standing near the closet, tall and thin, no face, no movement, but I could feel it smiling. My flashlight died. I didn't scream. Not because I wasn't scared, I was so far past fear it felt like my body wasn't mine anymore, but because something deep down told me that if I made a sound, that thing in the room would react, and I didn't want to know how. So I stayed still, perfectly still, even though every cell in my body begged to run, to fight, to do something. But there was no more flashlight, no power, just the kind of darkness that has weight, like the room itself had closed its eyes. I could still feel it there, not breathing, not moving, just watching. Like it was waiting to see what I'd do next. My fingers tightened around the handle of the knife, though I doubted it would help much. What do you stab when a shadow wears your neighbor's voice? I thought maybe I could edge toward the window. Maybe I could slip out, even if it meant falling 10 feet into snow and rocks. Better than being stuck in this box with whatever had crept inside while the lights blinked out. I took one slow step sideways, then another. No sound from the closet. I inched closer to the window and reached for the edge of the curtain. I could barely see it, but I knew where it was. I'd stood in that exact spot 1,000 times. I reached up and gripped the edge of the fabric, but before I could pull it, the voice came again, not from behind me, from inside my head. Don't leave me, Eli. It was my voice. I swear to God, it sounded exactly like me. Same breath, same rhythm, like I was remembering myself speak in real time. I staggered back, hand slipping from the curtain. My heel hit the corner of the bed, and I fell backward onto the mattress. The room was still dark, but now the shape had moved. It was closer. I could feel the pressure, like a heat source, but inverted. Cold leaking into the air, into me. My teeth started chattering, not from the cold, but from something else. Like I was being drained. "You were right to be afraid," it whispered. Still my voice. "No one's coming, Eli. They're all gone. You're the last." "No," I croaked. It came out rough, weak. They already complied. My hand tightened on the knife. "I'm not like them," I said. "You're not going to get inside my head." The silence that followed felt like it was judging me, like the thing was disappointed. Then it laughed, and I swear to God the walls laughed with it. I grabbed the curtain and yanked it open. Moonlight flooded the room, cold and silver. For a second, everything looked normal. No shadow, no shape, just my reflection in the window pane. And then, the reflection smiled. I wasn't smiling, but it was. My reflection tilted its head and raised its hand. I stood frozen as it reached toward the glass, touched it with fingers that didn't match mine. Too long, too thin. Then it mouthed a single word: comply. The window cracked from the inside. A single fracture split the glass from corner to corner. I dropped the curtain and fell to the floor, dragging myself toward the hallway. I could hear the voice now behind me again, full volume, echoing off the walls. It wasn't mine anymore. It wasn't Maggie's. It was every voice I'd ever trusted, all layered over each other. My mother, my old boss, my 5th grade teacher, my wife, especially my wife. "Eli, baby," her voice called sweetly from right behind me. "I'm sorry. I didn't want to go. I never wanted to leave you." That broke something in me. Because she'd said those exact words on her way out the door last year, right before she slammed it and took our dog with her. And I'd never told anyone that, not a soul. I pushed myself upright and stumbled into the hall, heart in my throat. My whole body felt like it had been microwaved, overheated and hollow. Then came another noise, different this time. A knock, but not on my door, on the window. 3 taps, delicate, like a child tapping for attention. I turned, and there she was, or something wearing her. Outside my living room window stood a woman in a beige parka, red scarf around her neck, blonde hair tied back the way my wife used to wear it. She had her hand on the glass, and she was crying. "Let me in," she said softly. "I came back for you." I knew it wasn't her. I knew. But something in me cracked all the same. I took a step forward before I even realized I was moving. The voice in my head whispered, "See? This is easier. Let go." I raised the knife to my own arm and squeezed. The pain was sharp, real, grounding. I snapped out of it and stumbled back again, gasping. My wife was gone. The figure at the window had vanished. The glass wasn't even fogged. I ran into the kitchen, flipping drawers, pulling out batteries, candles, anything I could find. My hands were shaking so badly I dropped a whole pack of matches on the floor. I lit 2 candles and placed them near the back wall, then flipped open the emergency radio again. Static. Hissing. Then, another voice. "Final warning. If you have not been retrieved, remain indoors. Do not engage with visual mimics. Avoid speaking. They learn." That part chilled me worse than the rest. They learn. They were watching me, listening, adapting. Every time I spoke, every word I used, it was picking pieces out and putting them on like a mask. That's why the voices had gotten better, more convincing. I sat against the wall, eyes on the door, knife still in my hand, trying not to blink, trying not to move. Outside, the wind picked up, and then came the footsteps. Someone was walking across my porch, but they didn't knock this time. They waited, just outside the door. Their shadow passed in front of the candlelight. I saw the shape. Too tall. Shoulders curved forward like their spine was wrong. The head tilted at an unnatural angle, like it was listening to my breathing through the wood. Then it moved to the window, and just stood there. It didn't tap, it didn't speak, it just watched. And then it did something worse than speak. It smiled, but not with lips. The smile split its face from ear to ear, thin and deep like a carving, and it showed me what was inside. It wasn't teeth. It was more faces. I must have blacked out, not from pain, not even from fear, but from overload. There's only so much your brain can take before it just disconnects, like a breaker flips and everything inside you goes dark. When I came to, the candles were burnt down to nothing but stubs. The house was still, cold. My legs were numb and my back ached from the position I'd collapsed in. I didn't know how long I'd been out, but it was still night outside. Still that same choking dark. For a second, I thought maybe it was gone. Then I heard breathing. Not mine. It was coming from the hallway. Slow, wet, like someone struggling to breathe through water. That horrible, wheezing drag of lungs that aren't quite working the way they should. I didn't move. My fingers searched the floor blindly until I felt the knife again. I gripped it tight, my knuckles aching. The breathing moved closer. The floor creaked under it. Not heavy, but long. Like it didn't walk the way people do. Like its limbs dragged behind it just a little too much. Or maybe it had too many of them. I kept perfectly still. I told myself not to speak, not to think too loud, not to feel anything. I knew now. Whatever this thing was, it didn't just listen. It sensed. It fed on attention, on thought, on recognition. It wanted me to see it, to look straight into its awful, stolen face and accept it as real. But I didn't. I kept my eyes shut and listened as it moved through the room and out again. Just like that. Like a child bored of a toy that wouldn't respond. When I opened my eyes, it was gone. But the damage wasn't. Every mirror in the house, cracked, not shattered. Just one long, thin fracture down the middle of each one, like something had stood in front of them and they couldn't take it. The largest crack in my bathroom mirror stretched right through my reflection's eyes. That's when I knew I had to leave. The emergency broadcasts said not to, that help would come, but there hadn't been a single human face in 2 days. No sign of the sheriff, no deputy, and Maggie. I didn't even want to think about Maggie. I packed a bag, light, batteries, knife, granola bars, 2 water bottles, and a flare gun I found buried in the junk drawer. Didn't even remember I had it. It only had 1 round, but it felt better than nothing. I didn't plan to survive with it. I planned to signal. I threw on my thickest coat, stuffed socks down my boots for extra padding, and stepped out into the cold. It was worse than before. Not colder, quieter. Like the air was holding its breath. My cabin sat on the edge of the woods, and from where I stood I could see the distant red lights of the government compound on the ridge. That cursed facility that showed up 2 months ago and started all this. The one that didn't exist on any map, that nobody was allowed near. I headed toward it. I figured if help was ever going to come, it'd be from the place that brought the nightmare in the first place. The snow crunched under my feet. The trees were dead still. Every now and then I'd hear a rustle behind me and whip around, knife out, hard in my throat. But nothing followed. Not yet. Halfway through the trail, the radio clipped to my belt crackled again. Retrieval Team Alpha, you are cleared to enter Sector 3. Repeat, cleared to enter Sector 3. Expect visual anomalies. Do not engage unless fired upon. Targets are non-responsive. Be aware of host mimicry. My blood froze. Retrieval Team. That meant someone was here, someone real, armed, and maybe, still human. I followed the trail faster now, my boots slipping on the ice, adrenaline making me stupid. I didn't care. I just needed to get there, needed to be seen, rescued, documented. The ridge came into view after another half-mile. Chain-link fencing with barbed wire coiled on top, all of it glowing faint red from the towers surrounding it. Inside, white domes pulsed with light. I saw vehicles, big ones, Humvees, a tent, flashing orange cones, and people. 4 of them standing near a black SUV, black uniforms, guns slung over their shoulders, helmets with visors. I stumbled out into the open, waving both arms. "Hey!" I screamed. "Hey! Over here!" They turned in unison. I slowed. Something felt wrong. They looked like soldiers, sure, but none of them moved quite right. Too stiff, too synchronized. And their helmets. There was something off about the faceplates. Too dark, like you couldn't see any reflection in them at all. I took one more step forward, then one of them raised a megaphone to his mouth. "Do not approach. Remain where you are. Authorization pending." His voice echoed unnaturally, flat, like it had been filtered through a speaker not meant for human sound. The other 3 remained still, not a twitch. Then a 5th figure stepped from the tent, not in black, in white, a lab coat. She didn't carry a weapon. She didn't wear a helmet. Just a long coat, gloves, and a tablet clutched tight in one hand. She looked normal. Middle-aged, dark hair tied up, sharp eyes, tired, like she hadn't slept in days. I froze. She stepped forward. "Eli Mercer?" she said. I blinked. How do you know my name?" "We've been monitoring you since the alert first triggered." I stared at her. Are you with the government?" A small smile. "No, but we used to be." That didn't help. I kept my hand near the flare gun, still in my coat pocket. She gestured behind her. "We're extracting survivors now. Sector 3's containment has failed. We believe you've had repeated exposure to the anomaly." My stomach dropped. Am I infected? "We don't use that word." I didn't like that answer. "What do you mean, repeated exposure?" She took a slow step closer. "You've seen them, heard them, survived them. That makes you interesting." That's when I noticed the men in black had moved. All 4 were now standing behind me. I hadn't heard them, not a footstep, not a breath. I spun, backing away, heart thudding. The woman held up a small black box with a blinking red light. "Phase 3 begins now," she said. "Subject compliant." The flare gun was in my hand before I even thought about it. I fired. The red light soared into the sky, arcing above the compound, burning bright enough to light every face around me, and what I saw nearly dropped me to my knees. The 4 men, their helmets were empty, completely hollow. No heads, no necks, just suits walking on their own. And the woman? She wasn't holding a tablet. She was holding a mirror. And I saw my own face in it. But it wasn't my reflection. It was smiling. The mirror in her hands reflected a version of me I didn't recognize. It wasn't just smiling. It was grinning like it had won, like it had waited for me to come this far just so it could see the moment I understood I was already lost. I staggered back, heart hammering, eyes wide. The flare sputtered out overhead, casting its last glow across the snow. In that brief light, the illusion broke. The woman in the lab coat didn't look tired anymore. She looked hollow. Her eyes weren't eyes. They were smooth, reflective glass. Her mouth didn't move when she spoke again. The words just came from her body like a radio transmission, flat and cold. "Integration successful. Emotional resistance compromised. Preparing vessel." "What are you talking about?" I shouted. You're not real." I drew the knife from my belt again. My hand was shaking, but I held it steady. The thing in the lab coat tilted its head, like it was curious, studying me. The 4 empty suits stepped forward in sync. No noise, no breathing, just the soft crush of snow under their boots, like mannequins guided by invisible strings. I turned to run, but before I could move, one of them was already there, faster than it should have been. Its arm shot out and grabbed my shoulder, not with skin but with cold, the kind that burns. I dropped the knife, fell to one knee. "Don't fight," the woman said, or the thing wearing her said. "You've seen what's behind the mask. You know the truth." "What truth?" I hissed through clenched teeth. The world tilted slightly. My vision blurred. It felt like my brain was trying to turn inside out. Like gravity had shifted directions and my body no longer understood which way was up. Then she answered. The town was never quarantined. It was harvested. That word hit like a gut punch. Harvested. Your town was selected for behavioral testing, isolation, malleability, resistance thresholds. We required subjects unaware of the parameters. "You mean this whole time?" I gasped. "We were just part of an experiment?" She nodded. Not all complied. Many self-terminated. Others wandered into assimilation. You were different. You resisted, fought. That made you valuable. I wanted to scream, wanted to stab the air, tear her apart, tear myself apart, but I couldn't move. The cold had spread. It wasn't physical anymore. It was inside. I felt it in my thoughts, my memories. Little details were slipping away. Maggie's smile, the name of my dog, the sound of my wife's laugh. They were just dissolving. "No," I whispered. "No, you're not taking this from me." "It's already taken," she said. The mirror shimmered again. I saw myself, younger, cleaner, before the drinking, before the layoffs, a version of me I hadn't seen in over a decade. Then it changed. My reflection turned its head and looked directly at me, and then it stepped out of the glass. It walked toward me, wearing my face, my eyes, my voice. But it wasn't me. It was better, stronger, calm, the kind of man I'd always wished I could be. I watched him kneel in front of me and smile. Then he spoke. "Don't worry, Eli. I'll take it from here." The last thing I remember before the blackout was his hand on my shoulder. Warm. The opposite of the thing that had grabbed me before. I woke up to sunlight. Real warm sunlight. I was in my cabin, on the couch. My coat was hanging by the door. The knife was in the sink, freshly washed. The radio was silent. It almost felt like none of it had happened. Except, it had. I knew it had. I stood slowly, rubbing my eyes. My body felt fine. Better than it had in years, honestly. No pain, no exhaustion. I felt rested, clear-headed. I moved to the window and pulled the curtain back. Outside, the snow was gone, melted overnight. Birds chirped in the trees. My truck was parked where I'd left it, but the frost was gone from the windshield. It looked like spring. Too fast, too soon. I turned on the TV. No alerts, just static. I checked my phone. No missed calls, no texts, no record of any emergency broadcasts. It was like the last 3 days had been erased from every device I owned. My reflection in the blank screen smiled back. I didn't. I backed away. Checked the mirror in the hallway. It was clean, uncracked. My face looked normal. Too normal. That's when I noticed it. A voice, faint, coming from the cracked speaker of the emergency radio, even though it was turned off. "Subject replacement confirmed. Memory suppression stable. Integration complete." I stumbled back, breath catching in my throat. That wasn't me anymore. They had taken what they needed, left the shell, and whoever was in control now, wearing my skin, living in my house, moving with my voice, wasn't Eli Mercer. I still don't know where I am now. I'm not dead, I don't think, but I'm not alive either, not in the way that counts. I exist somewhere between the wires, between the thoughts, trapped in the black mirror they used to study us, a copy of a man who tried to resist, and failed. And outside the cabin, they're still watching. Sometimes late at night I can feel them staring through the screen. Not the townspeople, not the military, not even the mimics. But you, yes, you. You're watching too. You've seen enough. You've complied.